Which Spurs midfielder should we be buying in our FPL teams? And is Gvardiol now essential? And should we be selling Trent? We're going to be discussing all of the Game Week 7 players that you need to buy, sell and avoid in today's video. So as always, if you look forward to it, make sure you drop a like. And of course, smash that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. But first up, we have to talk about the man of the moment. Cole Palmer scoring 4 goals in Game Week 6 is ridiculous. So rightly so, he is going to be one of the players that I think managers should be buying going into Game Week 7. But there is a massive caveat regarding Cole Palmer, which we'll come on to in a minute. But how can you not want Cole Palmer in your FPL teams off the back of those 4 goals in Game Week 6? At the end of the day, it could have been even better with him hitting the post and a goal ruled offside. But 10.7 million is a hefty price to pay. So what are the pros of bringing Cole Palmer into your FPL team? Well, firstly, you're getting one of the best midfielders in the league, period. 3.15 expected goals is third best for midfielders, and 3.37 expected assists is second best. So we're talking about a well-rounded FPL asset here. Sometimes we look at midfielders and they are solely goal-scoring machines, and some are chance creators. Cole Palmer is ticking the boxes in both departments, which means that he is actually having more avenues to points in any particular game. And I think that's a real big factor whenever we're considering a premium option for our teams, because 10.7 million is a hefty amount to pay for one particular player. So he is really delivering in both brackets, which is really great to see. No European football, of course, there is for Chelsea, but not for Cole Palmer, as he wasn't selected in the Conference League squad. Not because he isn't good enough, literally just to rest him for the Premier League. And it's worth noting, not only is it no European football for Cole Palmer, but it basically is no European football for this Chelsea team. The reason I say that is we've already seen in the previous Conference League games that Maresca is basically been playing a B team in that and an A team in the Premier League, with a few players dotting in and out for minutes. So yes, Chelsea do play this midweek, but I don't actually think it's going to impact them in preparation for the Nottingham Forest game. As I wouldn't be surprised if 9 of the players that start against Forest don't even play midweek. So we're going to get a fully fresh Chelsea team regardless of European football. The other thing that I do need to note regarding Cole Palmer is I really do feel like he's one of the few players, not only midfielders, but players in the game that has that true FPL high ceiling where he can get points in any fixture but at a ridiculous standard. Now, we have seen Mo Salah tick over with a couple of double-digit hauls this season. We've seen people like Palmer also do it, but Palmer's the one that I actually really feel like the 4 goals isn't an anomaly. Yes, of course, scoring 4 goals in a Premier League game is ridiculous, and please do not expect that to continue week in, week out, because it will not. But Palmer, Haaland, maybe Mo Salah, but maybe not nowadays, are the few players that I think are just ridiculous players that have the capability of scoring these 20-plus hauls in any given game week, to be honest with you, because of the confidence and just the ridiculous talent that they possess. Now, I do think, of course, dampen your expectations, because it isn't going to happen every week, but we need to put Palmer in another bracket of other midfielders, because he just has that extra wow factor where he can deliver these kind of returns any given week. Now, of course, there are problems with bringing Cole Palmer into your team. First and foremost, it is tough long-term fixtures. I know the likes of Newcastle have been out of form. I know Man United have been out of form, but I don't think this Chelsea team has been truly tested apart from the Man City game in Game Week 1. And with fixtures against Forest, who have been good defensively, Liverpool at Anfield, United at Old Trafford, Arsenal in Game Week 11, I've spoken about how Cole Palmer has the ability to score in any fixture and at any point, but I don't think the fixtures are incredibly favourable bringing in someone at 10.7 million. So just be careful of that if you are looking to bring him in. The other thing that we need to note, of course, is you need to sell a premium to get there or completely restructure your team. And I don't necessarily agree with some of the transfers that are being made going into Game Week 7. So I'm just going to bring up the Fantasy Football Fix top transfer combination for Cole Palmer. So what this means is that at number 1, 33% of the transfers going to Palmer are coming from Mo Salah. Now, of course, Mo Salah, we know, is one of the FPL GOATs. He is going to tick over nicely every single week in this Liverpool team. But With the upcoming fixtures for Liverpool being a little bit mixed and an away game against Crystal Palace off the back of a Champions League fixture, I'm actually not against this move. I think longer term, Mo Salah is going to be a problem that managers may want to look to move out because of these great value midfielders in the game. You're obviously taking a risk whenever you do sell Mo Salah, but I actually think Salah to Palmer is actually okay, especially if you're using another transfer to upgrade a player in another department, and I absolutely can get behind that move. The one that I really don't understand is going to be selling Bukayo Saka for Cole Palmer, which is 21% of the transfers. Saka up against Southampton this weekend is just one of the few fixtures that I really do not think you should be selling a player at any cost. Honestly, Saka is not only a great option this week, but a captaincy option. Southampton at home is a much better fixture than that of Nottingham Forest at home, and I get it. Coming off the back of 4 goals to Cole Palmer, you naturally just want to bring him in at all costs. But I really do think that Saka is the player to own this week. And I would not be doing Saka to Cole Palmer, especially with then the fixtures that he has long term, knowing that Saka has Southampton and then Bournemouth away, who themselves aren't necessarily watertight defensively. So Palmer is absolutely a game week 7 buy, but not at the expense of Bukayo Saka, who I really do think is a captaincy option this week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I can't get to him unless I wildcard. Let me know if you brought him in. So you'll be happy to know there's another game week 7 buy option. This is the theme of the video today. There are some fantastic players that we can be buying in our teams, and Spurs is going to be one of those. I think there are some fantastic value midfielders out there for managers to target, and we've got 3 of those on your screens right now. So the first question is, should managers actually be investing in Spurs as a team? Very much indifferent results under Ange in the opening 6 games, but I think we all know that the underlying numbers have been decent, and I think we always know we're getting attacking football with Ange. I don't think anyone can doubt that. So when we have the opportunity to invest in Spurs with a fixture swing that they have coming up, and at these price points, I think it's actually a great opportunity to jump on that train with the assumption that they're going to continue these underlying numbers in the final third. So the 3 players that we're going to look at right now is going to be Kulusevski, Johnson and James Maddison. I'm not putting Son on the screen right now because we don't know the injury status of him. And when we compare Son, we have to put him in the same bracket as a Bukayo Saka and a Cole Palmer. And I just think right now those 2 are very much clear of Son as an FPL option, especially when we've got players like this who are starting each and every week and offering ridiculous value. So I don't think you should be going Son right now when we have these 3 cheaper alternatives in the game. So of course, very difficult to analyse Kulusevski right now at 6.2 million because we've seen him play on the right and we've now seen him play in the 10. It sounds like with the way that Ange is setting up his team, Kulusevski may continue to operate in this number 10 role alongside James Maddison, very much an attacking midfield, but this plays into the narrative that we should be starting to look to invest in Spurs as a team. So first up, the cheapest option, Kulusevski. The weakest in terms of underlying numbers, 0.23 expected goals is the worst, but his expected assists is decent at 0.34, very much at the same note of James Maddison. And these, of course, are all taken on per 90 minutes because we're starting to see enough information now to actually filter it by per 90 minutes. So Kulusevski, great value, of course, at 6.2 million, but his goal threat isn't necessarily that of Maddison's and Brennan Johnson's. Now, at the top bracket, James Maddison here, I would want to see him be clearly the best in each department for me to justify paying 1 million extra. But you can see here, 0.36 expected goals is not bad at all for his price bracket, and 0.35 expected assists. He is very much a well-rounded asset, probably the most complete player of the 3 that we're looking at here. I really do think he has more avenue to points than the other 2. I think his minutes are going to be fantastic in the short term. When he's on this kind of hot streak, on this purple patch, I think managers just need to play James Maddison, and I think Ange is going to do the exact same thing with him in the upcoming game weeks. I see no risk of rotation at all for James Maddison. So in terms of overall points, I really do think James Maddison is going to be the one that picks up consistent returns each and every game week. However, at 1 million cheaper, I think Brennan Johnson is the midfielder that you should buy in this Spurs team. Right now, I do not see competition for him on that right wing role. I really do think the best 11 that Spurs are going for in terms of the attack is going to be Son on the left, Solanke down the middle, Brennan Johnson off the right, and Kulusevski and Maddison behind him. Ridiculously attacking, and I do think at times we will see a slight change in the Spurs team depending on the teams that they are playing. But in games that they're going to dominate the ball in, and when I look at the fixtures, Brighton, West Ham, Palace, Villa, Ipswich, I think they are going to dominate the ball in. I don't think they necessarily need that double defensive mid alongside Bissouma or Bentancur. So right now, I think Brennan Johnson, while his position is pretty much locked in on that right-hand side, at 6.4 million, you can see the expected goals, 0.5 is fantastic per 90 minutes. The big thing also, 3.79 shots per 90 is much better than the other two. And all of those are coming in the box. So he's picking up fantastic goal scoring positions. He isn't taking pot shots from 30 yards out where it completely skews the numbers that we're looking at. And really, I want to be buying the player that is getting the goals in an attacking team. And I think that man is going to be Brennan Johnson. So I think Spurs are a brilliant team to invest in. I think you could do it in game week 7 with Brighton away. And I think Brennan Johnson is the pick of the bunch. But honestly, I think all three are fantastic buys. Let me know your favourite in the comments. Now to probably one of the most controversial players in FPL right now, Bruno Fernandes. So many managers gave him their trust, their loyalty in game week 6, and he repaid them with a red card and a -2 point return. I really do feel sorry for those FPL managers that did keep Bruno Fernandes. The good news that I have noted at the top there in the pro section is that the red card has thankfully been overturned, so he will be available for a selection in game week 7. So do not panic, managers, he is now available. But the big question is, what do you do with him? And you'll see here, I've controversially put him as a game week 7 keep, but there are always caveats amongst that quote. So let's just go through the pros and cons first and foremost, the fixtures, and then we'll go through exactly what I do think about what you should do with Bruno Fernandes. I'm going to put it out there, you shouldn't be buying him right now. That is absolutely one of the things that you shouldn't be doing. So in terms of the pros, as I mentioned, the red card's overturned, so he's available for selection in game week 7. Happy days. Good long-term fixtures. When I look at Man United as a team, while I can't trust them as a team, I think the fixtures are there. Aston Villa away, not ideal, but of course they do have Champions League football, same as that of Man United, so that could just be a very difficult game to predict. Brentford at home in game week 8, while it looks good, Brentford have proved themselves time and time again against the top teams. West Ham away, we don't really know what West Ham will be in that point. We might see some improvements under Lopetegui, but if he continues the trend we've seen, that could be a good fixture of Man United. Chelsea at home in game week 10, they've had some decent luck against them, but right now at the time of recording, I would say Chelsea probably favourites for that game. Then Leicester and then Ipswich. So you're getting the real value at the back end of this fixture swing here, and I get it. These fixtures coming up, very hard to predict, but the numbers for Bruno have still been decent. 24.69 expected FPL returns. This is taken from Fantasy Football Fix, but only 13 FPL points. There is a huge underperformance for Bruno Fernandes right now, one of the biggest of all the midfielders. And I really do think those managers that have had Bruno Fernandes have actually been quite unlucky. Yes, he isn't a great finisher. We've seen that in his shot volume. He's had something like 18 shots and only 3 or 4 of them have been on target. End of the day, if you don't hit the target, you don't score goals. And I don't think he is a great finisher, but guaranteed minutes in this Man United team. If Man United are going to get any sort of positive fixture, you know that he is most likely going to be at the heart of everything good in that team. And I still think they have good attacking options in the shape of Garnacho, Amad Diallo, Rashford. I still think they have the tools available to score goals against any team. The problem with Bruno is that there are plenty of cheaper performing alternatives. We've spoken about the Spurs assets. We've spoken about Cole Palmer. I really do think right now, if you own Bruno, I get it. Selling him probably is at the top of your agenda. You're seeing people like Cole Palmer ticking over lovely. You're seeing people like Saka at home against Southampton. And of course, these Spurs assets. I think it's very difficult to keep Bruno in your teams because he's hurt you so much. But I honestly do think he is a keep for managers if you want to. Villa away is tricky, but then game week 8 onwards, I really think there are going to be some great returns for Bruno over this period. So to conclude Bruno, I do not knock anybody using him as a cash cow to get to Cole Palmer or coming down to a Spurs midfielder. I honestly could not argue with that at all. But I just want to give you that maybe that clarity or maybe that push, that motivation that maybe you've had, that if you want to keep him, I give you my blessing, because I do think there is still an FPL option here. And at 8.2 million, I do think he is great value. But I get it if you want to sell it to cheaper options out there. So let me know what you're doing with Bruno. But of course, if you don't own, you do not buy. Now, I'm really putting my neck on the line here regarding Eze, but I am going to put him in the Game Week 7 sell category. Now, I feel really bad saying this because I own Eze. I may even keep him this week, but at 6.8 million, I'm starting to have a few concerns about Eze. But the big thing about him is that I'm not having concerns about what I'm actually seeing or the underlying numbers. We can see here 25 shots for Eze is second best of all midfielders, and 2.66 expected goals is fifth best of all midfielders out there. The great thing about him is that he continues to be the talisman in this Crystal Palace team. We know his minutes are going to be absolutely guaranteed. We know obviously that he is going to be always at the heart of everything good in this Palace team. And no European football for Crystal Palace. They are completely committed to the Premier League under Glasner. But the big problem right now is that I'm not really seeing good things from Crystal Palace. We're seeing a very, very indifferent team each and every game week. Not really getting the results that we were expecting under Glasner. And with the recruitment that they've had with the likes of Enquiries coming into the team, I don't think it's necessarily improved them as an overall team. Of course, losing someone like Michael Olise is always going to have a major impact on any team that does sell that calibre of player. So the big problem right now with Crystal Palace and Eze is that the fixtures are very much mixed. Liverpool at home, one narrative you could say to yourself is that Palace up against a team like Liverpool have played in midweek, they could put on the show, there could be goals in this game, and if there are going to be goals, you would like to think Eze would be at the heart of it. But I look at him long term, I think Forest away, that's always a tricky game. Spurs at home, yes, I think there will be opportunities there, but it's not an amazing fixture. And then, by then, if you have been able to hold him until this moment, Wolves, Fulham, and then Villa, I do think there could be some returns over that period. But it comes down to the same thing that I mentioned about Bruno Fernandes, where there are just really, really good, popular alternatives available that are naturally making us want to knee-jerk Eze out of the team to get to them. So, for example, Bryan Mbeumo, who hasn't been spoken about in this video, if you had the funds available to do Eze to Mbeumo, who is home against Wolves this week, and in game week 9 has Ipswich at home, I just think I can't really sit here and have a very valid argument to keep Eze in your teams as opposed to going to Bryan Mbeumo. The same is going to apply for these Spurs midfielders. I really do feel like if you can use Eze as a cash cow to bring in someone like a Brennan Johnson, if you have no other problems in your team, is also a really good move long term for your FPL teams, because you're buying a team who, as a team, are actually delivering attacking football week in, week out, which I can't necessarily say for Crystal Palace. So, look, if you want to keep Eze, I can't really knock it. And I'm one of those managers that might have to because of other problems in the team. The underlying numbers are still good for Eze, but I'm just asking myself, is Eze that guy who is going to score? Is he clinical enough to deliver each and every week to reward the loyalty that you're giving? Because that's the big thing right now. You have to give loyalty to this player because there are so many great other options in the game. So to conclude, I think if you have an easy route to Mbeumo, a free transfer and no other problems in your team, I would do it this week. I would make that move. If you have an easy route to a Spurs midfielder and you feel confident in what you've seen in this video to go there, I would do it. The one thing I will say is that I think there are worse players that you can hold in the game than Eze. If you want to keep him in your teams, we know the numbers are still good and we know that his minutes are locked in and he is a talisman in this team. So if Palace are going to see a turn in form, I do think he is going to be absolutely the heartbeat of it. So for that reason, I think you can keep him in your teams, but I think he is a sell if you can get to Bryan Mbeumo. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. It pains me to say that as I do own Eze. So the final player that I want to talk about in today's video is going to be a defender, thankfully, and that is going to be Gvardiol as a game week 7 buy. As I said, this video is all about good vibes. Loads of players that you should be buying, which should make you excited going into game week 7. 5.9 million for Gvardiol, of course, had that early season drop, which all of us are very thankful for. If we could pick up a player of this caliber at a slightly cheaper price, that is always a fantastic thing. So I really do like Gvardiol now going into game week 7 and beyond. Looking at the fixtures first and foremost, as you can see, I think they're good. Fulham at home. Fulham have been good this season, but I don't think that's a terrible fixture at all for Man City. Wolves away in game week 8, Southampton at home in game week 9, Bournemouth, Brighton, and then Spurs. Long term, I think these are fantastic for a Man City defender. If they're going to keep a clean sheet, I can see a couple of those over this period, even though it is worth noting City are just finding ways to concede this season, which is always the narrative under Pep Guardiola. Attacking potential for Gvardiol is there. Not at the level that we saw last season. I really don't want you to think this is the Gvardiol that we had last year where he was playing basically as a left winger. We may see that, and you definitely are buying a player that has the potential to do that. 7 shots so far this season isn't the best, but I believe it's in the top 5. So good underlying numbers for Gvardiol, playing in a top bracket team. And the big thing about it is that right now, coming into the fixture swing where Liverpool have a few tricky games. Liverpool, for example, have Palace, Chelsea, Arsenal. We could actually see over this period a big swing in points of between Gvardiol and Trent. We need to remember that, of course, Gvardiol being 1 million cheaper. If you're in a position right now where you have a few problems in your team, I actually don't hate going Trent down to Gvardiol and then using that 1 million to maybe improve a midfielder in your team. For example, Eze to Brian and Mbeumo. I do think over these next 3 game weeks, Gvardiol will outscore Trent. And at 5.9 million, I really do think that he is a brilliant value pick for your teams. And I do think he is a better pick than that of Rico Lewis. 4.7 million for Rico Lewis. If we are having both of those start week in, week out, then I absolutely do think Rico Lewis is the better pick. But I still think there are doubts about Rico Lewis. I don't think we are all jumping to the gun right now thinking that he is going to be the guaranteed right back each and every week. Because we know Pep has a soft spot for Kyle Walker. We don't actually know whether Rico can be deployed as a centre mid week in, week out, and whether that is good or bad for him. So if you do have the funds available, I think Gvardiol is the number 1 pick in that Man City defence, and he probably would be my number 1 defensive pick going into game week 7 and beyond. I really would love to have him in my team, and he absolutely would be in a game week 7 wildcard team. The big thing that I just always have to put as a caveat is that there is Pep Roulette. There is always the risk of rotation at any moment with a Man City player. But with the absence of Nathan Ake and not many players who can operate on that left-back position in the way that Gvardiol does, I personally just think that he is going to be a consistent player each and every game week over this period. And the big thing that I want to say is, as I mentioned, if you need to downgrade Trent to Gvardiol, I actually don't mind that move at all to upgrade another player in your team. So Gvardiol for me is absolutely a top buy going into game week 7 and is absolutely a consideration for my own team, which you'll want to stick around for in tomorrow's video where I will be doing my game week 7 team selection, as we have a lot of things we need to talk about in my team. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up today's game week 7 buy, sell or avoid video. As I mentioned, there are some great players that you could buy going into game week 7, so it's an exciting time in FPL right now. Let me know in the comment section, any of these players coming into your team, which ones are you selling, and importantly, the players that I haven't mentioned in this video, who do you think should have got a shout out? I will definitely interact in the comment section as always. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to drop a like, always massively appreciate it, and of course, smash that subscribe button. I will see you in tomorrow's video where we'll be doing my team selection, and there is lots to talk about in that video, so you don't want to miss it. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Have a great day. I'll see you real soon. Take care. Cheers.